Storm clouds moving in. Whatever's gonna happen, it's about to begin. I remember what the drunk donkey told me when he said, son, don't fear. Mike's where the page life is about to begin. Then he's gonna tell you about the wind and the rain. Gonna tell you which way it's going, if it's gonna be a hurricane. Don't you worry about the news that they try to hide. Just look on Mike's page, Drunk Donkey Nationwide. There'll always be some haters, but they don't understand that Mike's got a friend and 100,000 more across the land. Well, if you want to know it first and you want to know it right and you want to have time to plan, Drunk Donkey Nation tells your friend Mike, he's your man. Then he's gonna tell you all about the wind and the rain. Gonna tell you if it's gonna be a storm or if it's gonna be a hurricane. Don't you worry about the news others try to hide. Look on Mike's page, Drunk Donkey Nationwide. Yeah, here on Mike's page, Drunk Donkey Nation Pride.
All right, everybody. Holy moly, good morning. Sunday morning. Coming down. My favorite Johnny Cash song. I know Chris Christopherson sang it too, but Sunday morning coming down. I woke up this morning, put on my cleanest dirty shirt. True story. All right, so it's time to get serious here, folks. We're going to talk all about Tropical Storm Ian. A lot of anxiety and a lot of people blowing Ian off, especially in the Florida Peninsula. So we're going to get into all that. I've been working hard all morning. Hopefully you got to see my YouTube channel. A little concerned about some shifting to the east. I really want to go over that a lot and what we could be in for if that indeed happens. So if you've been going, this whole week we've been, tracking this thing, watching windshield wiper effects, kind of right back where it all began. But let's have one dog. Let's do a couple minutes, let everybody log on. It takes a few minutes for people to get logged in here. So I do want to say hey, tell you who I am. My name is Mike. Mike's weather page, obviously. I don't think my name would be Bob if I had Mike's weather page, but I am not a professional. I am not any official source of information. I am just a weather blogger. So if you're very nervous about Ian, then please stick to the National Weather Service or National Hurricane Center for official advice. Because sometimes I show stuff that might not come true. And I get called out a lot. Now, everybody's showing the same stuff, so. But, so there, that being said, we've been talking on the internet now since 2009. Our Daily Brew is a really popular little show here, especially in the tropics, brought to you by our good friends at ABC Fine Wine and Spirits here in Florida. Some people like a good hurricane party. I'm not endorsing it, but if you do, that is our official source of storm supply essentials, ABC. All right, so this is Hunter. If you wonder why his collar's off, he's actually outgrew his. He's finally 11 pounds now. Can you believe it? Almost 2.5 years old. He finally outgrew his baby collar. So he's taking on the role of his big brother. He was the first dog up here today to come over here. So everybody needs a little puppy while we get rolling here on our storm. So I do these little YouTube quickies. So if you don't have the patience to sit through everything, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Mike's weather page. All right, here's what we got. So, always start out the day with the official NHC forecast. And by the way, listen, I always chat to people when we're slow. I'm not going to do that today until the end. Okay, we got to get rolling. I'm not going to waste anybody's time that might be here to talk tropics. So here is what it looks like right now. Ian, man, oh man, it's getting the look. Anybody that's been tracking tropics for a while, this is setting up to be a biggin. That is not hype. It's got the makings of a large Irma-style storm, in my opinion. It is growing. Yesterday it was 450 miles wide. We'll measure here in a little bit. But just overall, looking at the satellite, you can tell this thing is spinning, and it is not going to take long for this thing to start organizing. Once it gets into this Western Caribbean, the warmest waters in the whole Atlantic, this is the prime time to watch the Western Caribbean. It's the hottest waters of the season right there. Here's another bigger picture. This is the overall water vapor loop, and it's big. It's got a big moisture field. Look at that. And there's little old Florida there. So just solidifies the fact this is going to be a big, far-reaching system regardless of landfall. Okay, remember that. Too much focus is being put on the center line, and sometimes I get wrapped up in that too. Here is the latest from the NHC. Okay. Let's talk about this cone for a little bit. A 450-mile wide system, first off, is going to really cover the whole state, first off. The NHC is in a bad spot. They have the GFS American model, which so many people still use because it's one of the top models. It has become the outlier trending to the Panhandle. The other operational models, including the Euro, UK, Icon, CMC, are all here. So it's very deceiving. I read comments. I feel vibes. This is the vibe I'm getting. People in the Florida Peninsula think that it shifted west and it's over. It's not. At all. I am extremely concerned about the Florida Peninsula. Granted, that includes a lot of people. So South Florida, yeah, you're going to get effects. This thing comes at an angle. The closer it gets to the Florida Peninsula, that's where we got to really worry. So, we don't talk specific locations if you're asking, but I'm just afraid that people in the Florida Peninsula see this shift yesterday and they think it's over. Okay, it's not. It's not. And there's a false sense of that. Another comment that I'm seeing, and it's bothering the heck out of me. I got a buddy at the EOC. I called him. I'm like, I've saw this type 10, 15, 20 times. This is what the news says. It's going to only be a hurricane category 1 when it makes Florida landfall. That's what they say. So old Floridians, natives, it's only going to be a 1. Here's the problem. First off, I got graphics that show if it's only a 1, Sandy. The list goes on and on and on. Category 1's Florence. Billions of dollars of damages. Don't ever get that mentality it's only Category 1. A slowing down Category 1 system in the Panhandle would be a flooding disaster. Surge still. It's not only a Category 1. But here's where I'm worried about this statement of it's only going to hit Florida with a Category 1. This thing shifts, which a lot of models are showing. Look at this. Now it's an M, major hurricane. And this is where the deception is about this cone. The cone is anywhere that the eye wall can go, not the effects of the storm. So the NAC has to put this out there because they believe in the GFS, which I don't. People that know me, I follow the tropics all year long. You get gut feelings on models that have been performing. You get them that don't, and the GFS has performed terribly this year. A lot of stock is being put into the GFS right now from Mets that haven't been following the tropics like I have. Now, if it's right, I'm not being irresponsible to tell people follow all these models, follow your cone. Panhandle should be very high on alert, yes. But what I'm telling you is gut instincts and opinions, the GFS shouldn't be looked at that specifically right now. So if this thing turns to Tampa Bay or even north of Tampa Bay, we're looking at a major hurricane. Another thing the NHC is doing, which I don't knock them, I'm 100% behind the NHC and National Weather Service, but living in Florida my whole life, I have never seen an eastern Gulf of Mexico storm go from a 4 to a 1. Okay? No way. I mean, I just don't see it. The latest GFS shows a 970 millibar system to the north. That is not a Category 1. So that's a little doubtful in my opinion. So there's a perception it's only a Category 1, but it's going to be a Category 2, 3, 4 right off the coast here. This thing shifts to the east. We got a Category major hurricane sooner than what people think. This is 2 a.m. Thursday. That means Wednesday effects. That means we could have evacuations as early as tomorrow along the coast, Monday. It takes a long time to evacuate a lot of people. Big decisions, the National Hurricane is going to have to make as far as communicating to the public what could happen. Because we're getting close. There's no more like it's a week away. We're talking 2 a.m. Wednesday. It could be, just outside of the Keys, bringing some pretty serious effects. And I'm going to show you all these models in a second and who could feel what and this and that and this and that. But I wanted to start this little show out. Again, it's only a Hurricane 1. 2 things away. Look at that. Even if it hits a Category 1, don't ever say it's only a Category 1. Widespread flooding, surge, tornadoes, all can happen with a 1. But I'm also worried that people think if this thing shifts and hits Tampa, it's only going to be a Category 1. That's what I'm getting at, is you think it's only a Category 1. Okay, so what? It shifts and hits Tampa. The mentality is it's only going to be a 1 because everybody on the news is saying it's going to hit Florida as a 1. So people say, okay, it's only going to hit Tampa as a 1. No, it would hit Tampa as a major hurricane. So this little shift is serious. And I'm not making these little shifts up. I woke up this morning early and I was like, oh my God. I was actually hoping for consistency and have them blend together, and we don't. So anyway, that's that. That's current track. That's official. Anybody in that cone, that's where the eye could go. Don't focus on that center line. Never, ever, ever. Now more than ever, don't focus on that center line. All right. Secondly, let's look at some models just to get that going. Here are your latest spaghetti models. Let me pull these up. These are from Southwest Florida Water Management. And you can see the bind that the NHC has. This is basically here to here. And that's kind of where the cone is. That's where all the models are. A lot of these models are based on the GFS, which means they're going to show west side of the cone. Red is the official line from the NHC. So exactly where the cone is that's kind of where they draw the cone. They kind of forced to, right? So that's that. Some of the tropical tidbits models, these are your 12Zs. These just came out. Man, they're just locked into this 2 schools of thinking. The NHC usually goes off the consensus line. They call that the TVCN line. It's still showing Panhandle, Big Bend area. So again, factual information here is this. Forget what I just said about what I'm seeing. People in the Panhandle should still be watching, obviously. The only good news about the Panhandle, if there is any good news, there is a front coming down. There is shear. There is dry air. The NHC is confident that it's going to weaken some. So that's a little good news versus, a major hurricane coming at you. But we're going to show you all these shifts here. As far as intensity goes, all right, so these are your intensity models. And I use a lot of, by the way, tropicaltidbits.com. I usually use most of the Levi's stuff here. I have a lot of tools, but I choose to use his stuff. He's a great guy and friend. So if you're wondering where to get this information, it's tropicaltidbits.com, and I have all the links on my site. You can find them. But these are your latest intensity models. I usually don't show them, but the consistency has been extremely high that we're going to see a 3-4 in the Gulf of Mexico. Simple as that. So that's what we got cooking. Here's a thing on timing. This is a really good graphic. We can start seeing tropical storm force winds down by the Keys Monday night. Tropical storm force winds reach central Florida by Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, we can start seeing them drift up to the north, and Wednesday night. This is because the storm effect's well past the center. So even though the center might be way down here, we're still going to see tropical storm force winds way up here because it's a 450-mile wide system. Then it might be bigger by tomorrow. It looks like it's getting bigger. Morning girth. Jim Cantori is in Clearwater. I know. Shelly, I told her that. We got to find confirmation of that. I just happened to look over there. Oh, Weather Channel confirmed it. Okay. Well, that's where I'll be, I guess. So there's a good time, Matt. That's on my site, too. What else we got? All right, let's look at models. Let's just pop right over here to the latest models. So these again, tropical tidbits. All right, so there's 2 euros. These are two euros we're going to start out with. Euro is king. Euro has been the most consistent model with this system. And I'm going to show you that first. All right. So this is all of models. This is what's building that confidence on an East Coast turn, and why the East Coast should, or East Gulf, an east shift towards the Western Peninsula, Florida Peninsula. So this is what's showing a little bit more eastern possibility shift in the next NHC model, which is at 11 o'clock. I have some surge maps I'm going to show you too, and other possibilities with rainfall. But this says it best. This big old green line up here shows you that front. Every storm I can remember in the Gulf that was intensifying has made a turn east. Just gut history. No scientific data to that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts that there is nothing official with that at all, except Irma, Charlie, just 2 in the recent past that turned northeast way before the models were supposed to. At one time, Irma was supposed to come up and hit Tampa. Charlie was supposed to hit Tampa. Both of them turned early. Anyway, here's the latest Euro. Keeping that theme. You know, worst case scenario for Tampa Bay, 955 hurricane. Doesn't get much worse than that. Slows down. It reacts to that high pressure blocking that we've been talking a lot about. The front's pulling out of here. High pressure is going to move in from the Atlantic, kind of move in from the north, and it's going to find a little weakness, and it's going to sit there for a while. This is what the second part of the story is the flooding. East Coast states, the trend has been your friend. This thing appears high pressure is going to be building in from the Atlantic because the front's going to be pulling out. You pull that front out. Once you pull that front out, high pressures end up meeting in the middle, and this thing doesn't look like it's going to be an East Coast worry as far as hurricane goes. So anyway, you know, there you go. That's bad. I do have the latest 6Z Euro, which I think is this one. Yes. So the Euro also runs 6Z, 18Z, then it only goes out 90 hours. So we just had a 6Z. That was the OOZ. So the 6Z just came out. Fresh data. Just ran like an hour ago. And it continues with this strengthening system on approach towards Florida. So, man, the Euro is not backing down. It hasn't backed down. The Euro is king when it comes to reading upper air patterns. All the modeling now has the new data that they were getting yesterday for the trough up ahead, the front. So these models are getting the freshest data, and that's what we're looking at. That's the latest Euro. And I don't know how to tell you, eastern weighted systems, the worst side of a tropical cyclone hurricane is the east side. So on approach, you're going to feel it big time. All along the southwest coast, no doubt. And here's what I need to talk about our South Florida friends. This is getting close to the Keys, right? Here's what's going to happen. I saw this with Irma and some other storms. We got a flow here coming around the south side, and it's going to be fueling up by your Gulf Stream. And we could see some strong storms starting as early as Monday night into Tuesday. So don't look at the West Coast storm. We're going to see strong storms rolling in off of that Gulf Stream into the Miami, farther north areas, guaranteed. So we could see some localized flooding for sure as this system rotates and brings in storms. So people focus too much on the center, but they don't realize that the south side of Florida gets whacked a lot from storms to the west. All right, some other models. Let's just leave this up. This is the UK. A lot of folks forgot about the UK. I kind of did too. At one time, it was one of the top models, but it's being mentioned a lot in the Hurricane Center's discussions lately, and it's showing a turn. Don't focus on the intensity. What I've seen over the years, models don't really do good with intensity sometimes. It's more important at this point to look at the tracks. We know a system in the lower Gulf is going to be strong from history, but we're looking at the tracks. And there's another south track. That is way different than the Panhandle. So there's two models showing that trend. Other models we're going to look at. Here's the latest GFS. This is our outlier. This is what the NHC is putting a lot of stock in here. The latest 6Z came out, and it is a little bit to the east, a little tick east. Yes, last night's 12Z run was here. This is last night's 12Z run. I don't understand why the NHC is saying Category 1, to tell you the truth. 970 millibar system is strong. It's 970 on the old Saffir-Simpson scale is about a middle-of-the-road 2. So I don't really understand the confidence level with only Category 1. They downplayed Fiona, Puerto Rico, and Dominican Republic at one time weren't going to get anything, and they got hit hard with a hurricane. The Nova Scotia got hit hard on a weakening system, so I'm not really sure where they're getting that. That's just me opinion, you talking out loud. But even if the GFS is correct, it's showing a 970 hurricane on approach. This would be Thursday night into Friday, or early Friday. So the latest 6Z GFS did come out, and it's a tick to the east, it's starting to turn a little bit. So it did adjust a little bit, but still a 970 millibar system. So that's your outlier. The thing that's scary about this is the fact that a GFS is showing a 941 millibar system in the Gulf. Very believable. What you got to worry about is if the GFS intensity is correct, the track is wrong, then we're going to see this obviously closer to the coast if the GFS intensity is correct. So again, it's putting that 940, 950, 960 range storm possibly for the Florida West Coast. Now, I'm going to talk about surge in a minute. Don't leave yet. The icon, I in the past, I believed in the icon. I don't want to believe it now, but it's showing the exact same thing as the Euro. 949, 941. I don't tell you, man, that is bad. That is worst case scenario for Tampa Bay and surrounding area. I don't mean to keep saying one thing when I say Tampa Bay area, this is how I am. I was born in Bradenton. When I say Tampa Bay area, to me, I mean, not being selfishly, it means about this whole area right here. It includes Bradenton. Think about your TV stations. No, I'll tell you better yet. When I think Tampa Bay, it's when the FM radio stations start picking up. Because that's how I grew up. Once I used to drive on the interstate and started hearing radio signals catch up, I'm like, yeah, we're home. So I don't mean to just say Tampa Bay. I'm talking about the Tampa Bay region area. So that's what but anyway, 941. Holy moly. If you're curious what a 941 is on the old Saffir-Simpson scale, that is borderline 4. So we're getting up there. And this takes that worst path just to the north of Tampa. Little weakening, 962. I don't even want to talk about that. So anyway, there's that one. The CMC. Now, the only thing that's significant with the CMC, not always the best track model, but I do want to show it. It was really trending with the GFS. It was showing a system bending almost to Louisiana, and what the hell? But look what the CMC started to do. It's getting a lot closer now to the Big Bend and Florida West Coast. So there's shifts going on here. I can say I have a gut feeling that it's going to hit the Florida West Coast. but there's a lot of models now saying it too. So the anxiety went up a little bit in my mind. I don't think it's being talked about enough. I think the perception of, I had the news on today. Florida's expected to get hit with a Category 1 hurricane. So everybody's thinking, it hits Tampa, it's only going to be a Category 1. No, it's going to be a Category 3, 4, according to some of these models. Big misconception going on right now. I'm afraid in some of how it's being communicated to the public. And that's just a couple days out. I don't know. And I think we're at the state that I think people, not state meaning Florida, I think we're just in that position now that I found myself in this position. Everybody's afraid to be wrong, right? So it's the safe road to downplay. It's a safe road to just copy what the NHC is doing. But I got to go back to what got me where I'm at, and that's spaghetti models and models, right? We believe in the models. When Michael showed 3 days out, 4 or 5 models hitting, unfortunately, the Panhandle, guess what? They were right. We're almost at that point of confidence that the Panhandle GFS solution's wrong. So that it needs to be discussed, in my opinion, a little more intensely to people here, that there is a real possibility of something big time coming to the Florida West Coast. One graphic I want to share with you, since we're on that topic of gloom and doom. This model map here, this is from CERA, Coastal Emergency Risk Assessment. It kind of takes real-time data from the National Hurricane Center and applies it to potential surge levels. Now, granted, this is a National Hurricane Center track, so obviously a lot of surge here. Fish Creek, Swanee, these Crystal River, Homosassa. This is based on the current track of our system. And notice, still, even if the NHC does not move the track, that is bad. We are looking at areas here in Tampa, Oldsmar, right where I live, could be underwater. There's Hillsborough Avenue. Now this is, I can't fathom that this would ever happen, but these type of maps, there are signs all across my area. There's one here, there's one over here that show we could be underwater with a major hurricane. So this is based on the current track of our system, even with the shift. This is where it got me worried with people. Oh, it shifted west. Man, it's like the anxiety of tropics. When they make a shift, you feel this like you pop the air in a balloon. You know what I'm talking about, right? When it's coming close to you, you're all amped up. And when it makes a shift, you almost get a feeling of, little depression somehow. Like, oh, it's gone. But even with the shift, we have serious potential for flooding here in Tampa Bay. And that includes Pinellas County, all of our barrier islands. That had the same problem with Ada. Ada was 60 miles offshore, and we had 1,000 homes flooded in the Tampa Bay area with a tropical storm 60 miles off the coast. We still had serious problems. But here's the graphic I want to share. This is the scary one. Well, actually, you know what? We can go back now on tracks. I just found this out the other day. So we can go back to the previous track that was closer to Tampa to show you the worst case scenario. All right, so this track was yesterday. This was an east track. Didn't make landfall. Granted, too, this track yesterday was weaker on the NHC. This was not showing 130, 140 mile an hour system. This was yesterday's 110 miles an hour. Had it weaker than what it's showing now. But people have been following me for years. A passage skirting Florida's west coast, north of Tampa Bay, could be epic. and that I am not hyping anything. This is real life data that we could see a lot of areas under some serious surge. Now, I don't make these maps. We have a lot of professionals that you trust and do a lot of data plotting, ground levels. We're very low here. The bay, like I said, a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm brought record surge in Tampa Bay 2 years ago. And we had 1,000 homes flooded from Tropical Storm Eta that was 60 miles off the coast because this water has nowhere to go. It just funnels in. You take your hand and just push the water. It has nowhere to go. So that any track shift at 11, even without a direct hit, surge is going to be a serious issue along the Florida West Coast. And this track here, we had surge showing up even down as far as Sarasota, Bradenton, Port Charlotte, areas underwater. I mean, there's land here. These are real scenarios. We do not want a close skirt north of Fort Myers, really. So anyway, new track at 11. This is important to me. Here's the other thing, rainfall. All right. So let's talk about this for a minute. First off, we know there's going to be a frontal boundary here, right? So we already got moisture. That is going to induce some shear. Again, I totally understand the thinking that this thing could weaken the farther north it goes because we're going to have a frontal line and there's going to be dry air that could get wrapped in the system. There could be wind shear. I've seen it played out before that systems were supposed to do that and they didn't do that. So I could see it going from a 4 to a 2, but not a 4 to a 1. I don't know. But regardless of that, the other thing we got to worry about is inland flooding. And inland flooding is the bigger deal with tropical systems. Anybody that can tell you that's lived through a flooding event from a system it's not so much the winds, it's not so much the initial impact, it's the flooding that's going to come. Our ground levels here in Florida are already saturated and big problems already with rivers maxed out. And we're showing totals here, 7 to 10 inches across a huge chunk of the peninsula. Yesterday we had 15 to 20. Now again, this is based on that track west. We get this track back east, the rains are going to increase even more. So 10 to 15 inches here in some of these yellow spots, 7 to 10 in the brown spots. So that's, a tremendous amount of rain. And here's the problem with the rain. Obviously, it increases flooding. Evacuations, for example, right? We're going to have evacuation orders, almost guaranteed. And you add flooded roadways on top of tropical storm force winds, there ain't no way if you call 911 you're getting any help. I've heard that from the horse's mouth. Totally understand now exactly what the point of having evacuations are. It's not that you're going to die or be in some serious problem with winds or whatever. There's going to be people obviously that are going to be in bad areas. It's not the 1 million people that are going to be in the worst case scenario. It's those 1 million people aren't going to be able to have access to simple things like 911 or power. They're doing it for your safety. I get it totally. My mom and dad. My mom has oxygen. She has medicine that has to be refrigerated. We lose power for a week. They want people to be safe. So when you get evacuation orders, they're not coming to you when we have flooded roads or tropical storm force winds or whatever that threshold is. I'm not sure. So that's why they issue, it's a lot more thought going into warnings or evacuations than just the fact that you're not going to get the worst case scenario on the storm. It's the getting you out of the way for safety. And they get a backlog of 911 calls. Guess what? You might not get any help for a long time. So that's why you need to go to your local offices. The number one question I get, should I evacuate? I'm never going to tell you that ever. Every county's got their own emergency management section. They got know your zones. Obviously, today is the day as a family. Find your zone. I don't even know my zone, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm the most irresponsible person probably when it comes to planning. I thought I had a thing from my county, but I don't even have it. I don't even know my zone. That's how irresponsible I am. Know your zone. Because if you get evacuation as early as tomorrow in Florida's West Coast, you need to know. They say, A, B, C, know your zone. And have a plan right now. Where are you going to go? I've already talked to Julie about evacuations, believe it or not. I've tried to convince my mom and dad to evacuate. I am that convinced we could be looking at something worse than Irma here, in my area at least. So I'm already thinking ahead. I'm not doing it. I'm not overreacting. I'm just thinking, think in your head. Like, okay, where are we going to go? What am I going to take? Am I going to take the dogs? Do I have enough medicine? Do I have enough cash? Do I have enough gas? That kind of stuff, Phones, you have your phone chargers, you have your passwords. Make sure you have all your passwords down. Biggest thing, you leave your home and next thing you know, it's like, oh my God, I don't remember my passwords. So have your passwords. I have mine. I take a picture of them. This is the time to think out loud to your head. Okay, what if? What if this thing turns to the Florida West Coast? What now? What do we do? You don't be caught off guard and say, oh crap, man, I don't even know what, where do I start? So we got the real possibility of evacuations coming if this thing inches closer to the West Coast, and that's going to catch a lot of people off guard. Because it could be as early as tomorrow, Monday. That's a big deal. I said big deal one time on one of my videos, and it really bothered me because I said it, and I'm like, it's a big deal. It is a big deal, but how many times you say big deal, meaning it's not a big deal? So big deal right now means big deal. Again, I'm not ignoring y'all. I found when we get a storm that's approaching, just cut to the chase. We'll save pictures and puppies and beer for another day. But anyway, rainfall big. And here's the other problem with rainfall. There's two things now we got to talk about. Power outages. Everybody, man, I ain't even took a sip of coffee yet. The original cup, we will show that though. We've been doing this a lot of years together. So power outages are always underlooked. We're going to have widespread power outages. There's no doubt about it. Wherever this thing decides to make landfall, worst case scenario is a skirt on the Florida West Coast as a major hurricane. You add in all the saturated ground, we're going to have higher than normal power outages. Guaranteed. Trees cannot withstand winds, hurricane force winds, and have a soggy root system. So, and I'm sure a lot of people have neglected pruning their trees, getting them hurricane prepared from the professionals. There's a whole art. Well, my buddies from, I think it's O'Neill's Tree Service, maybe. They told me that they take it very serious when it comes to how to properly hurricane prune a tree. East Coast effects, 100%. This thing's going to be big. Remember, just think of Irma. If you lived on the East Coast during Irma, everybody worries about the West Coast. A big wide system like this is going to bring storms through the state. You're going to have wraparound storms coming in off of the Atlantic. Remember, the Atlantic has the Gulf Stream. So once we get some storms over there on the Gulf Coast or the Atlantic coast, we're going to have more, you're going to have storms rolling in on you guys that you might not even expected. So this is, it's a statewide concern. There's no doubt for that. So anyway, power outage is going to be intense. So today's a great day. Start your generator. Make sure it runs. Make sure you have extra oil handy. I've used generators a lot in my life, and they do use oil the more you run them. So it's always good to have an extra quart of oil, because once you lose oil, I don't think anybody's ever mentioned that, to tell you the truth. Make sure you have an extra quart of oil laying around, because if your generator runs a little low, guess what? They shut off. You're done. So have an extra quart of oil. Make sure you have enough extension cords figured out. You cannot run your generator. There's a percentage of deaths with hurricanes, and most 90% range, plus minus, all water-related deaths. Surge, inland flooding is a huge problem with fatalities in tropical systems. Surge, surf, rip currents, inland flooding. There's going to be a graph one day of hurricane-related deaths with generators because so many people run their generators in their garages or close to the house next to a window. So there's some safety tips online. They suggest X amount of feet. I don't have that information, but I just know there's been hurricanes where half the deaths, unfortunately, were generator related, meaning carbon monoxide. So you got to have long extension cords is what I'm getting at, because you just can't have a generator. Then you're like, well, how do I plug my fridge in it? So you make sure you have cords. Otherwise, what's the point of a generator? John Sinnon's watching me from the Drew Garabo show. Windshield wiper. Classic windshield wiper, people. This storm has taught us windshield wiper flip-flopping. Here's our storm. This is the history of our storm. Trended to west central. Right? Then we started seeing it go south. Then we saw it come back. Then we saw it go to the north. Now, unofficially, not official, we're seeing it come back. And usually that is the last wiggle wobble. We saw with Irma, East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, West Coast. And again, nobody knows where this is going. That's why the NHC puts that big cone out there. We just spot trends. Trends are your friends at this point. Common sense, history, all that good stuff. And here's another little tidbit. This is happening right now. So check out the latest hurricane hunter data. Look at this sucker. It is wobbling north. They talked about this. The center is still ill-defined, believe it or not. It's still not intensifying. So we're getting these little bounces around. The last fix went north a little bit. So, this thing is not set in stone by any means. The overall steering pattern, though, however, does suggest this turn up. So you can watch this live on Tropical Tidbits as we watch it develop. A few graphics I want to share with you. How about this, by the way? Here, I'd put this thing. Do you know we had a hurricane hunter, Jim Warnecki, that wore our shirt inside of Hurricane Zeta? He whipped it open like Superman. He was dropping drop zones in Hurricane Zeta wearing our shirt. That is not the coolest thing ever, right? Here's a good messaging category. Only a category 1. So let's say this thing goes to the Panhandle and it does indeed a 1, even though the models are saying 970. But let's say it's only a 1. So in the last 11 years, 10 to 20, they've had 185 deaths, $110 worth of damage, $1 billion of damage, 110. Florence alone had $24 billion in damage from a Category 1. And here's some notable storms that were only a Category 1. Irene, Isaac, Sandy, Hermine in 16, Matthew, Nate, Florence, Barry, Hannah, and Isaiah landfalled as a 1 and caused significant memories for a lot of folks. The other thing I wanted to show you about storms is this. So our storm is not, and I got this comment. I love reading comments because a lot of the people's thoughts, even though 1 or 2 people write it, that's probably represents about 10,000 people, right? So somebody wrote the other day, it made a lot of sense yesterday. Well, it's not even organized yet, so it's not going to be a major. Well, see, that's a common misperception from a lot of people. They're like, well, it's only 1,000 too. It's not going to be anything. It's fast. It's nothing. Broken record time. I'm sorry for my local brew crew and coneheads that are here every day. The most. If I had to pick one tidbit of information about the tropical season that is the most amazing tidbit I'll ever hear in my life, the continental U.S. has had 9 landfalling hurricanes that were 150 miles an hour plus. 4 of those were Category 5s. 5 of those were obviously high-end 4. So 9 storms 150 miles an hour plus hit the continental U.S. Ida last year was one of those. Out of those 9, 8 of them were only a tropical storm 3 days out. 8 of them. So it doesn't matter what it is today. That's the scary thing about the tropics. And all the data that's coming in is showing rapid intensification is coming. We have no shear in the Western Caribbean. We have the hottest waters of the season in the Western Caribbean. We have climatology working in favor. History, you got to look at history. We're in a El Nino season. We have the MJO kind of favorable, so everything's stacking up to this thing being a monster. And what's interesting about this graphic, look where they all are. This tells you right here the Gulf produces strong storms. So I'm gonna start looking here. Hey, John Welch, look at that new Cat 5. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Melissa, Brian, thank you. Yo, hell, what's up, buddy? How you doing down south, man? John Ferguson, how are you doing, John? Are you guys ready? John Ferguson lives in the Caymans. Hopefully the storm doesn't develop too much by then. Christine says they had a lot of flooding from Faye. Backup files is a good thing. You guys are putting a lot of information. That's just great. Shelly's our administrator. She helps out tremendously, so we have a lot of new people probably wondering. Shelly does help. Hey, here's my friend Paul Jeanette Barr. Thank you. Glenn, thank you for the tip there. Goes to good use. I do not buy beer with it. Yes, that was Matthew, this skull. This is these are satellite images of past storms. Michael had a funky looking face at one time, and obviously Matthew became real famous. Robert's Girl, thank you over there on YouTube. It's not looking too healthy. No, John, but I kind of disagree in one sense. In the early stages of development, these systems start to get this broad rotation. And you can see it. You can just see it. It just has it. I'm telling you. It's going to be a hurricane. It's got everything going on right now. I mean, it's got the spin. It's just in its early days. It's got a little bit more time to get its act together. But Pete, it is possible. If the Euro and Icon are showing a Tampa landfall a little south of Tampa, we could always see that last little turn like Charlie. And so I'd almost bet money at 11 o'clock we're going to see a track change from the NHC with a more shift east. Almost bet money. And they make baby step adjustments. They don't make knee-jerk reactions. So here's what I learned the NHC likely will do, in my opinion. They're going to nudge it east. They're going to make reference to the GFS. They're going to make references that the majority of models, global models, are shifting east. They're going to say future track adjustments are going to be likely, in meaning 5 o'clock. So they're going to wait for the 12Z models, rightfully so. If the GFS kicks east, then all this that I mentioned as a possibility is likely going to happen. But they're being conservative because they have one model that is showing north. So, and again, listen, none of the stuff I say is a forecast. You guys make your own decisions. I've been showing models. I mean, to hear people type on Twitter that it's irresponsible to show spaghetti models when I bought the domain in 2004, I think somebody probably, I guarantee there's some hyper that's probably wasn't even born in 2004 telling me I shouldn't share spaghetti models. That's been the foundation of our page. People love spaghetti models. I love them. You can learn a lot from spaghetti. But man, welcome everybody. I know we only get a lot of people when there's a storm. But we do go live all year long. We are one big happy weather family, and a lot of us share these experiences together. And one thing about tropical systems, it brings everybody together, kind of like in a good way but bad way. Communities are affected and people rally together, and it sucks. You can't stop Mother Nature. Like I say before, the only good thing about a hurricane is we're talking about these potentials 3 days out, right? So there's really no surprise element. So that's the only good thing. You got time to prepare, right? I mean, like I told my dad, he's 85. He's probably watching. I'm like, Dad, he wants to stay home and protect his house. I'm like, what are you going to do? You're going to stand out there and catch that oak tree that's fallen? I mean, what are you going to do? I told him, you can't stop Mother Nature. I mean, a little tidbit too, by the way. I mentioned it yesterday that I do a lot of hurricane expos for counties and cities, and the fire chiefs always give really good presentations. One thing that they said, which I don't think ever gets published, is if you evacuate, turn your power breakers off and tell everybody that you know to turn your power breakers off. Because if we get a surge event and they have to come to your house for a fire or who knows what else, and once that water reaches a receptacle, guess what? It's dangerous. So if you evacuate, I know it sucks with your refrigerators and stuff, but they suggest that just to keep people safe. I mean, you don't want to come home to your own house and realize that you're standing in floodwaters that might have live power going to them. And what sucks about it is it doesn't even take an outlet. A lot of these outlets are low to begin with. You might just have a power cord for something that's gonna get wet and electrocuted. So that happened with Ada. We had all that flooding during Ada, and I'm afraid somebody lost their life to electrocution. So anyway, if you've been following us a long time, all year long, we've been talking about these lingering fronts. Mentioned that it could be looking into the future as far as the way the tropics and indeed, looking back this season, lingering fronts have pushed the Atlantic high eastward. We saw that with Earl, and we saw that with Fiona. They made hard turns. Now we're seeing lingering fronts brew October-style systems up from the Caribbean. And history says they follow fronts and they curve, so we'll see. But again, I am 100% advocate, follow the National Hurricane Center, Weather Center. But the thing is, their cone shows landfall. And you know what? I had this up. And probably the most important thing on the page here is the key messages. Let me read these to you. It is expected to remain a major hurricane when it's in the Eastern Gulf. Uncertainty and long-term track intensity higher than usual. Regardless of that, dangerous storm surge, hurricane winds, heavy rain along the Florida West Coast and Florida Panhandle by the middle of the week. Residents of Florida should have their hurricane plan in place. But one thing that doesn't tell you is that we're going to have heavy rainfall across the whole state. And we're going to have squall lines reaching the whole state. And these squall lines can pack the punch. So it's a big 2 days ahead if we start to see this thing shift. Liz just says, be wary of peel and eat shrimp. What storm was the peel and eat shrimp incident? Shelly, don't tease and tell everybody. I'm probably the only storm chaser that had to have surgery on his finger from a peel and eat shrimp incident. Hey, Shelly, I can do that. Surge map. People ask about surge maps. Okay. So right now, currently, eventually the NHC is going to have, they did add these graphics. I'm hesitant to put these up yet. They do have the rain maps, but it's just deceiving because it's not showing you past this area. So I really don't like it. I wish they would extend it out through the week because it kind of gives a false. Again, I believe there's a better way to communicate to the public. And to me, that looks like there's not going to be any rain north of Tampa Bay. Bad, in my opinion. That's a bad graphic. Anybody from National Hurricane Center, you have to agree with me. That's a bad graphic because the public's going to think there's no rain above Tampa Bay. But eventually what I'm getting at is we're going to see surge maps, and they don't have those yet. So But I do have a site here on mine that, by the way, a little bit about the site. Everything in this column right here is geared towards Ian. So Tampa Bay National Weather Service link, Florida traffic. I need to put a tides map on here because tides get added to surge, and we have something called storm tide. Storm tide is not included when you see storm surge values. A lot of misconception. I had to do a lot of homework on that. I didn't know for the longest time. Storm surge does not include tides. So you add surge plus tides, and you can have an additional 2 feet on top of the surge, or 3. National Weather Service winds and waves map is kind of cool because it can zoom in on your local area. There's your spaghetti models. Ensemble storm products, wind analysis are always good. There's a lot of infrared stuff. Here is surge ideas and surge possibilities. Surge possibilities is the Sierra site. I don't know though, Shelly. I don't think it's updated for the islands. But if it is, they're not showing anything down here for the Turks, so that's good news. They are showing it, so maybe it is. Oh man, all of a sudden it just froze on me. Let me close Windows. We're towards the end. If I lose everybody, I'll close everything. This site's the problem. Let me close it. Let me reopen it now. I think I jammed it up. But yeah, it's not showing any surge. So I think, it's so far off, John, if you're watching, I think that you're going to be okay. So, hey, Cindy likes my app. Thank you very much. It's so basic. But I got a lot of people that like it. I appreciate it. I do charge for it. I can't give it away because it does cost me a lot of money. But it's $2 a month, and you can cancel at any time, and then you can buy a year for $16, $17 or something. But I do have a lot of things in there I pay money on top of the app that we've used. A lot of people thank me for. I tell you the coolest thing that I work with YouTube on. It wouldn't work with Facebook anymore. We used to have it. So on the app, the 2 things that most people like about the app is you can watch everything, all my stuff from YouTube on there, and you can even watch the live video on there. We should be streaming live right now. I haven't checked in a while. So you can watch it live. Yep, look. Facebook anymore. We used to have it. See so on the app, this is the 2 things that most people like apps. And then the other thing is this daily Mike's Site Snapshot. Right there. Mike's Site. Well, I've had a lot of sailboat people. This is the reason I got the app right away, was because a lot of people are on sailboats that don't have a lot of bandwidth. So when you hit that button, it takes a snapshot and you could zoom. It's not a live version of the site. It's actually a JPEG imagery. And people have told me this has been really helpful in storms because when they lose their internet, sometimes this will be working because of cell service and whatnot. So yeah, I'm proud of it. You hit Ian and I'll have all the important links. Real easy to track, spaghetti. Sometimes it's hard to find all that stuff. So at least if you do that. But once the surge maps come back, we'll see. So it's still supposed to be 100-mile hurricane possible or maximum wind. It could be let's see what the Turks are going to get. Let's look at the Turks. What the hell? I'm talking. That was last week's news. The Turks, the Caicos. What the hell? Not the Caicos. The Caymans. What the hell, man? I shouldn't be losing my mind this early in the day. That's not a good sign. All right, so we're going to look at windy.com, and we'll take a look here at, boy, and everybody uses Windy now, too. It's been slow. Must be real popular. Let's try it again. Well, right now we got a white screen. Thank you, Todd Moore. Oh, my God, I've never seen the Windy site down like that. Oh, well. It's trying. Let's go back to some other graphics I might have here. Here's some of the surge. I have to show all this. I mean, I don't want to go into all that again. Here's just, this is important. I mean, look, we're in an October style pattern here, and this is Bay News 9, but 4 hurricanes have affected the Tampa Bay area, and look, they've all hooked eventually. Everything hooks northeast in October. Michael eventually hooked northeast. So the question, I guess, is when it's going to hook. Michael was a little bit farther to the west. That is really weird. I've never seen windy that slow. Hoping to get some data for our Cayman friends. That's a bummer. All right. Well, let's leave it up. Let me read some comments. Well, this tries to load. Should you say, should you go? Heck, I don't know. Anyway, that's about it. Might be on my end, actually. I better be careful. I'm about ready to lose some stuff. Oh, you know what? We might be able to just open it in the app here. All right, let's try it this way. This might be better. Let's do it this way. So, let's see. This might be the only way right now that we can see it if they're experiencing any trouble. I do have this embedded in my page, which is really neat. So, this is an embed of, you can get some winds. That's showing some pretty strong winds here for our Cayman Islands. Look at that. John, are you watching? So according to this, we could see some good winds, hurricane force winds. This is Monday, 7 a.m. It's going to be passing. This time has been perfect. Winds in the Caymans are going to start going downhill tonight, Sunday night, but it looks like the heaviest winds are going to be overnight. They're going to be coming in from the south and the east, midnight, 1 o'clock. Looks like the worst winds are going to be. There's your flow. So obviously if we have any surge in it, it's obviously going to be coming in from the south and the east. That's our wind flow. So any areas that are prone to any type of surge, this will be the worst time in the morning hours as our storm pushes the water in. So yeah, you got a double whammy pretty much with surge. Notice the wind here. I mean, it's pretty much all night long you're going to get winds on the island. And again, that's a Euro, but this far out, every model's going to be pretty close the same. Alrighty, so that is about it. I think it's my side that's actually frozen. So I might have to call it quits soon. So here's the deal. Let's try one more time here. If I can open anything. I know I'm still streaming, but so we got a new NHC update coming out pretty soon, about 30 minutes. It'll be all very important to watch. Like I said, we're watching for any east shifts. Any east shifts are going to hopefully be a little more announced in the news as far as potentials go. So, everything I said, just, none of it's official. Just if you live on the Florida Peninsula side, stay alert. So, there you go. I think I talked for an hour straight. And I lost my Facebook. I'm still streaming. But let's try one more time. Because I do like to say goodbye to people. But I hate to close out without saying goodbye to everybody. But I might have to. But I still see YouTube. Tim. TVCN is a great model. It's kind of a blend. Seahawk over on YouTube asked. I think if I close this, I'm going to take a chance here. And try to open it over here one more time. I jinxed it. No surge maps out yet. It's official surge maps. I will be live tonight sometime. Thank you, James. And at least we have one window open. I guess it could be worse. And we're going to get to meet a lot of people that support us here. I saw that Lodging Solutions is going to have a crew setting up tent solutions for linemen. I'm pretty sure Tammy and company are going to be here from OSR. I'm pretty sure Coastal Claims is coming over to help people with insurance. So we'll be doing a lot of that stuff too, meeting some of our supporters. I know Furman's always ready to rock and roll and help when they can. I did hear not all our area, but Costco was out of generators. Lowe's by my house was out of generators. So a lot of people taking it serious. I'm just, Publix, my wife works at Publix. They had to have an extra truck of water. There's been a lot of Publixes out of water and supplies. And that's really before the media got going on this storm. And we get an east shift and discussions of evacuations, and it's going to get real. So I'm just worried about the Florida Peninsula not taking this serious enough. And just got a bad feeling. All right, so I'm going to close it off. I got a lot of catching up to do. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a lot of new fans and followers. It means a lot. Like I said, we get more intimate on our chats when the weather's slow. So, we encourage you to stay tuned to us all year long without a big storm coming. We have a good time. So, all right, we'll be back live later tonight sometime. I'll do a quickie probably at 5 p.m. So the next update from me as far as a video will be 5 p.m., but I'll be posting online constantly the next couple of days. All right?